YouTube? It's your boy Trey back with another video. And today I wanted to talk about my favorite episode of Space Dandy. Now, if you don't know about Space Dandy, then you should know Space Dandy is similar to Cowboy Bebop, but to me it's much more uplifting and more colorful than Cowboy Bebop. They're both essentially like bounty hunters, except Spike catches like people and Dandy catches aliens, like unfound aliens. And the show is honestly pretty great. On my anime list, I got it at least at like a 9. It's a pretty great show, in my opinion. Didn't necessarily finish in the proper way, but you could say it's finished. It's pretty much like episodic. There kind of was like a big plot to it, like him getting chased by like the giant alien gorilla, but I digress. And anywho, back to the subject at hand. My favorite episode is episode 10. There's Always Tomorrow, baby. Episode's pretty great, in all honesty. They said it's a nod to the movie Groundhog Day, the American film. I haven't watched it personally, to be honest, but I know of it. And to be honest, the show kind of reminded me of basically of if you like ever paid attention to like numerology, it was basically like like your birthday numbers, like there's like a personality to it. Like, so if you're 1, you're like a leader. If you're 2, you like being in a couple or something. And if you're 3, you're like pretty much creative, I guess. And so for this one in particular, it matched on my birthday number in terms of like the message of it, because the message of it was, well, not message, but the number that I landed on was 8. And the premise of the episode was that they landed on a planet. It was Meow's planet, and when they landed on the planet was basically like caught up in like a space-time like little continuum thing, where like the days just keep on repeating, and so every day is just the same, just repetitive in a little monotonous town, and nobody really could really point out like what was the problem. Like, they kept going through it until the 88th day that they finally figured out that they're in like a time loop, once they started to realize that they were like once they realized that they're like doing it like 80 times in a row. They were like, oh, okay, we got psychic powers. But no, it was more so like they're just stuck in a loop, didn't even notice it. And once they did notice it, they realized that they had been on the same day for like a very long time, and the day that it was on particularly was July 8th. And I kind of found that very interesting, because 8 is basically the number of infinity in terms of like possibilities and like numerology. Very like ambitious kind of number, but at times it can be very like monotonous and like very stubborn to change. If it gets set in its ways, it can become like a stagnant 8. And that's kind of what you saw in the episode, because like by the end of the day, there's only so many things you can do differently, but it's always like there's always something nuanced with it, and it kind of reminds me of like the number 8 in a sense. Like, how many times can you do something in like living in the living world without it becoming like sort of like monotonous in a sense? Like you watch the same TV show, sort of like the show like Weeds. Like in the show Weeds, there was always like a premise, but it was always like the same premise, but it was just like told differently. But where am I trying to go with this? Basically the point is that like, what is infinity basically? Like, I guess I'm getting too abstract, but point is that they got caught up in like a very monotonous day, and they were stuck in it. And it was kind of like something like QT was trying to avoid throughout his life. In a sense, thought he was going to be very like a very big person, but he didn't like really amount to the type of person like that he wanted to be, which is, you know, kind of disappointing in a sense. But he was still living. Like, he sort of kind of got his dream of like being on the road, I guess. Something like, it's not necessarily a big deal, but you know, at least he got off the planet, made it out, etc. But the main point of it is that 8 can be very stagnant, but it can also be very ambitious too, which kind of reminds me of kind of like Cowboy Bebop, because I'm pretty sure the creators of Cowboy Bebop, there's like I think they have similar creators, or at least directors. I know there's like the creator of Cowboy Bebop. He worked on like on Space Dandy. I think he worked on like either the music or the sound. I mean, or the sound, or like the just being like a regular director. But the power of 8, it can be real. I'd recommend checking out your birth number, seeing it up, or looking it up, because I've noticed in my life too, if like things get kind of repetitive, I can kind of get like caught up in a monotonous route, and that happens to like almost everybody, of course. But the only way to break out is basically to kind of change your ways and your habits. That's the only way to get out. Unless you want to get stuck, especially like in a 9 to 5. If you are like born on the 8th or something, I'd recommend getting out of that 9 to 5 life, or trying to do something different for yourself. But that's just me personally. And in terms of the Spike Spiegel thing, Spike was he was born on June 26, my bad. And yeah, man, born on June 26, and he was he got caught up in a very repetitive lifestyle too, once he kind of like got away from his life in the syndicate when he was just a bounty hunter. And I thought that was kind of interesting that they kind of just played on like the 8 numerology in that too, because there's like a lot of, not a lot, but kind of reflected the 8. Like the 8 can be very powerful, it can be very like unpowerful in a sense. And Spike kind of seemed like he actually kind of balanced it out. Like he was definitely like on the broker side, but he wasn't necessarily like, oh, excuse me, a pushover in a sense. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But I love it, man. It's my favorite episode of Space Dandy. I recommend it to anybody who loves Space Dandy. One of my favorite episodes in a sense. And you should check it out if you love anime, Space Dandy, or if you wanted something else to check out that isn't Cowboy Bebop. That's like an episodic in a sense. Love y'all, man. Take care. Peace.